We're good? Trying to find us. If we're live, I don't know it yet. There we go. There's the live link. That's going to need to get retweeted and stuff. So if you can get somebody on that on the back end, that would be great. I actually can't even pull this up right now. Oh, yeah, I got to mark that it's not for kids. All right, now we go. I've got a link. Should be good to go. Tyler McLaughlin in chat, you are first. Says should be good now. You are correct. I'll go through the spiel again. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show, Tuesday, December 29th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by the boss man, Alex Baker. We've got a 10-gamer, and we're already 3 minutes to the negative at this point. Boss, any fun thoughts from last night? Anything good happened for you?
Last night wasn't my night. TLC. I was a little worried about the minutes because he wasn't even playing like the first couple of games. So like to go from not playing to like 30 minutes and then the overtime sealed the deal for me. So not a great night for me, but how about yourself?
Break even, which I will take. Although I had enough of some of the good stuff, I did not have enough of TLC. But look, break even is a win as far as I'm concerned. And it was technically slightly above break even. It was a green number. That's really all that matters. We need to dive in right now for us to get through these 10 games. And we're just going to hit on the high level stuff as we go. So I'm ready if you're ready, Alex.
Ready.
Let's do it. Kicking it off, Boston Celtics, Indiana Pacers. Celtics 2-point favorites in Indiana, 218.5 total. Best I can tell, everybody is healthy for Boston that has been healthy. Obviously, we still don't have Kemba Walker. On the opposite side for Indiana, looks like we should have Victor Oladipo back. So let's just start on the Boston side, whether it's FanDuel or DraftKings. Do you see anybody that stands out from the Celtics?
Well, I mean, Kemba Walker continues to be out, so that creates opportunities for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I am kind of wondering if they're going to change up the starting lineup today because the coach, Brad Stevens, was talking about how he thought Tice and Thompson would be a good defensive lineup, but they're not winning games. Tice only played like 15 minutes in the last game, too. So I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be a shakeup. Probably won't matter a lot. The guy I'm landing on a little bit is Jason Tatum. I mean, his usage rate this year has been 32, average 35 minutes a game. So I think there's some value there, but probably not standing out like a ton on the slate.
Yeah, Marcus Smart looks okay. 5,900 on FanDuel, 5,900 on DraftKings as well. Nope, I have that wrong. 5,900 on FanDuel, definitely a salary that is something else on DraftKings. 6,500, there we go. It would help if I actually dragged my formulas down correctly before the show started, but you know, what are you going to do? We'll get there when we get there. Ultimately, I don't really like much on the Boston side. You mentioned the potential for a lineup change. With Indiana, it might not matter all that much. It's pretty much just Turner and Sabonis running at the center spot. I think that's probably a decent opportunity for Tice, but honestly, who knows? Between Tice, Tristan Thompson, Robert Williams, even Grant Williams, they have so many different potential options at center, whether they want to go to a stretch five type or a more traditional bruiser. I think it's just going to be Brad Stevens playing it by ear on a day-to-day basis. TJ Warren on FanDuel looks kind of interesting to me. 5,100. I see you've got him projected for around 30 fantasy points. I think that looks pretty good. Hasn't really been involved the same way he was last year. The minutes are down a little bit from the monster minutes we saw him playing in the bubble. Obviously, a little bit different of a makeup for the team. How do you feel about Warren or really anything for the Pacers?
Yeah, Warren on FanDuel looks like he's just one of those guys that has a mysteriously low price, kind of like Brooks yesterday. Yeah. But Warren in this last game, I mean, he played 37 minutes. So that was with Oladipo out. So I'm going back to the previous game before that. It looks like in this game, the bench went on a run. So he just came in kind of late into his second quarter rotation. So that was a little funky. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, is there any like real reason why his minutes would go down last year from the 30 plus he averaged?
I I think they're just trying to be a little bit more balanced at this point in time. They realize it's sort of a marathon, not a sprint. No need to run these guys into the ground. If you need to put out Doug McDermott for a bit more time, they can do it. If it needs to be a little bit more Aaron Holiday or Justin Holiday, I just don't think that they care all that much.
Yeah.
New coach too.
Yeah, it does look like maybe there are some red flags around TJ Warren, so I'm going to have to knock him down a little bit, because that first game, it was a close one and he didn't even really close. So they ran out TJ McConnell over and Doug McDermott instead of Turner and Warren, which not every night is going to happen, but that's definitely a negative sign.
Another problem for the TJ Warren at 5,100 on FanDuel is that Larry Nance is $400 more expensive than him, and we will get to Larry Nance. Ultimately, I think this is a matchup of two teams that are, solid defensively and not all that entertaining from a DFS perspective. I don't get the sense that this is going to be a game with a ton of exposure. Do you have anything else you want to touch on, or do we want to keep it moving? We do have the 10 gamer here today.
Yeah, let's keep it moving.
All righty. Next one up, the Chicago Bulls at the Washington Wizards. The Wizards 5-point favorites with a 234 total. Russell Westbrook should be back after taking the night off. We'll start on the Chicago side, and I see a solid amount of value both on FanDuel and on DraftKings. Zach LaVine is 7,500 on FanDuel. To me, that is just too low of a price tag for him. That's a guy that I have my eye on. I think Kobe White looks okay at 5,900. Wendell Carter at 5,100. The rookie Patrick Williams, 4,200 on FanDuel. No problem getting to any of those guys. I think LaVine and White look best on DraftKings. And you could sort of pay down for Tomas Satoransky if you want to. What stands out to you from the Chicago Bulls today?
Yeah, on FanDuel, they're all really cheap. On DraftKings, not so much. I want to rewind just a second. Sabonis, I feel like, is a top option tonight. Okay. He's kind of filling it up in every category, playing 37 minutes a game so far. So I just wanted to mention that because that would have been something that we don't want to neglect. Okay, so in Chicago, I mean, on FanDuel, all these guys are popping. Wendell Carter was the guy that had a slow start to the year, but the last game he really showed why we kept rostering him at a high percentage. And he's a guy that, when he's not in foul trouble, can really play a ton of minutes at the center position, rack stats. On FanDuel, he didn't see his price go up, so I think he's a good option there. LaVine, like Kobe White, these guys are good options. There's nothing really today that is making them pop, aside from, it's a good matchup versus Washington, but one guy that I see as a value play too is Tomas Satoransky. He missed the first game or two, but he's back. He played 24 minutes in the last game, so if he continues seeing that, which wouldn't be that unheard of since he averaged 29 minutes a game last year, I think at 3,500 on DraftKings, he's a value option.
Yeah, I like that price tag on DK as well. One thing to keep in mind, it looks like Thad Young may be back today. He'd be starting off his season. Don't get the sense that he's going to get a ton of minutes, but that will eat into, Chandler Hutchison or maybe Patrick Williams a little bit. I'm not entirely sure who's going to be the guy that takes that haircut. Hutchison probably the first guy, but he should be working his way back. On the Wizards side, I think there are a few interesting options. One, Thomas Bryant is 5,200 on FanDuel. I think that looks like a really nice price. He's 6,800 on DK. Much better value there on FanDuel, but you can only roster one center. I'm happy to get to a little bit of Denny, whether that's on FanDuel or on DK. And then Russell Westbrook on DraftKings, 9,700. Seems fine to me. I think that he's going to thrive for this Wizards team. So much shooting to spread the floor between Beal. Bryant can shoot the rock. Clearly, Davis Bertans, one of the better shooters in the league. So I do have my eye on Russ a little bit on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's 10,600. I think he's a little overpriced there. I didn't say anything about Bradley Beal. Kind of just indifferent. Like, I'm happy to have Bradley Beal. He's never like a bad play or anything, but just not grading out all that well to me right now. What do you think about the Wizards?
Well, I think Westbrook being back, that's certainly a significant downgrade to the rest of the team. Westbrook's numbers this year have been off the charts pretty much. So I think playing alongside Harden, we kind of expected his numbers to take a hit, and that was the case. If we go back 2 years ago, 9,700 for Harden or 10.6 on FanDuel would have been a reasonable price. And I'm actually thinking about really smashing a ton of Westbrook, particularly on DraftKings where it's cheaper. What I'm seeing here is last year his defensive rebounding went down a lot. He was at 16%, but so far over the first couple of games, he's at 28%. That's not unheard of because in Oklahoma City, he would rack up the rebounds. As we know, Steven Adams would kind of box out for him. Very unusual situation, but the net result was Westbrook was getting triple doubles like every single night. I don't expect that to be like quite the case this year, but I do feel like over the first couple of games, he's shown that he's taking a significant leap in fantasy from last year.
Yeah, I think he looks really good at that DraftKings price tag, 9,700. He has the opportunity to really blow that one out of the water. What are your thoughts on Thomas Bryant on FanDuel? Because he's the first guy that I'm noticing today that of the two games that we've talked about that really is standing out to me. Does he stand out the same way to you?
Yeah, I mean, he's 5,200. He's averaged 29 minutes a game. Plays best position for fantasy. So, I mean, he's been getting decent usage, about average at 19% on the year, gets the rebounds. So I think he's a solid option if he continues playing this 30 minutes a game.
I like it. Anything else you want to touch on between the Bulls and the Wizards for this game?
Oh, let's keep it moving.
I love it. I love it. To the Golden State Warriors we go. Warriors at the Pistons. Pistons on the back-to-back. Golden State 3.5-point favorites in Detroit, 222.5 total last I saw. Oh, I don't like saying this out loud, but it happens from time to time. I think I like Andrew Wiggins the most for the Warriors. Those nights are usually not nights where I'm happy about what's happening. And I want to be a little bit muted. I think he just looks like a solid play in the mid sixes. I think Kelly Oubre looks fine. Steph Curry's price on FanDuel is finally a little bit more correct. I think they were pricing him like he was his brother for a little bit, or maybe his dad, but he wasn't exactly priced like he was himself. Now back up to 9,400 on FanDuel. Still like him. It's Steph. He's not going to shoot terribly all season. There's going to be some games where he comes out here and drops 8-9 threes and really hangs a number on people. But anything standing out to you from the Warriors, please don't tell me it's Andrew Wiggins. That's not a place that I definitely want to go today.
I'm definitely intrigued by Steph. I mean, he's matched up against Pistons rookie Killian Hayes, who has had a shaky start to the season. So, I mean, on an individual matchup level, we got to like it. He doesn't fill up the stat sheet like Westbrook because he doesn't rebound the ball nearly as much, which, I mean, I'm only bringing up because they're basically the same price on DraftKings. His minutes haven't been, like, all out either. I mean, if Golden State was really trying to put the pedal to the metal, try to make a run this year, you'd think he'd be playing like 36, but he's only averaged 32. I mean, his rotations make me think he's somewhere in between that. But
yeah.
The news with the Warriors, Marquise Chris is out for an extended period. I think the whole season. So
most likely, yeah.
We saw Juan Toscano Anderson move into the starting role, so Eric Pascal could back up center a little bit. But I think that opens the door a little bit for James Wiseman, where if there's a 2-man rotation instead of a 3-man rotation, maybe he could see more minutes as he's coming back from COVID. So I think he's kind of this guy that it might be hard to like pin down what price he should be, but he seems like a reasonable one.
Yeah, he's actually my number 3 on FanDuel from the Warriors, 4th on DraftKings. I do have Curry a little bit ahead of him. I think his minutes are just going to be seriously in flux. There's going to be times where he's making defensive mistakes and they have to go to Kevon Looney. This doesn't seem like that game, given it's the Pistons. And sorry about speaking ill of the Pistons on this one, boss, but they're not all that great. So this might be a better spot for Wiseman. I do have my eye on him a little bit, 5,200 on FanDuel, 5,900 on DraftKings. Are you liking anything from your Pistons? I am quite the Mason Plumlee fan today.
Yeah, I like Mason Plumlee. The one thing I'll note is Mason Plumlee has only had 10% usage this year, which, yeah. I mean, I'm not expecting that to be the case going forward, but he hasn't really been involved offensively. But the price is good and the minutes have been solid. the one guy. On FanDuel, I'll throw out Delon Wright. I mean, he came off the bench yesterday, but I think that was just because they wanted him to play backup point guard instead of shooting guard. So I expect him to probably start tonight. It wouldn't be crazy if Josh Jackson started, but he's only 4,200 and having a solid season so far. So he's kind of intriguing as a value option. But the main guy I'm honing in on is Blake Griffin. He's at probably one of his lowest prices all time at 6,900 on DraftKings and FanDuel. Now, with Andre Drummond shipped off, you expect Blake Griffin to rebound the ball more, and that has been the case. Last year, he only had a 13% rebound rate. This year, it's up 20% on the defensive end. So that's a significant improvement. The usage has been down. I don't know exactly what to make of that, but if we go back to previous years, he's never been like below, 27. So his 22% usage so far could be a outlier. The minutes have been great. He's averaged 39. I mean, there was a double OT game, but still. So I'm kind of feeling some Blake. How are you feeling about Griffin?
Love him. Was the number 2 contender on DraftKings today. You guys can check that out. Those videos are live right now. He's just too cheap. He shouldn't be 6,900. Mid sevens would look a lot more reasonable. So I think that's a really nice spot to grab some value. When he's playing, I expect him to be good. It's just that he might not be out there all that frequently. But if you're expecting him to be in the game and on the floor, he's just not priced like he should be. It's priced like there's a 10% chance that he doesn't play for some strange reason. And that's not really the case. So I like getting to Mason Plumlee. I like getting to Blake. You mentioned DeLon Wright for 4,200 on FanDuel. Love that spot. I don't mind getting to Jeremy Grant. Like the minutes are going to be there. He's going to be involved in the offense. I think he's just sort of a guy, but I don't think the Warriors defense is very good. So I would have no problem grabbing some Jeremy Grant. I don't have all that much interest in Derrick Rose, but another guy where if you get a little bit of it, it's fine. I just don't think he has the minute ceiling on a day like today.
Yeah, they haven't run out Killian Hayes and Derrick Rose at all together, which is a red flag for both of them because they're obviously trying to play Hayes, so that's limiting Rose.
Anything else Warriors or Pistons related?
Nah, I just my gripes yesterday.
All right, guys, 3 games up, 3 games down. We've got 7 to go. Coming up for the rest of the day after this show in 40 minutes, the final regular season NFL strategy show. Laffy, Sal, Ben going to take you through this week's NFL slate, week 17 in the NFL. Then we've got at 4:45 Eastern time, the NBA deeper dive. They're starting 15 minutes early because it's a 10-gamer. You guys know the drill here. It's Laffy and Adam breaking it all down. They'll go through everything game by game with all of the news that we'll pick up throughout the day. You don't want to miss that one. Finally, live before lock tonight, Jason Floyd, Greg Ehrenberg from 6 to 7, taking you all the way up to lock. We just don't stop. So much content in a day. Where else would you guys want to be other than the Awesemo.com YouTube channel, which you guys should subscribe to? And don't be afraid, since we ended up on a different link, we might be a little bit behind right now. 500 people in here still coming in. 68 likes, not going to be enough. Either stick it at 69 or let's run this one north of 100. Are you ready for Knicks Cavs, a game that I will absolutely watch none of?
The Cavs have been good this year, man. 3-0 so far, but yeah, realistically, this is some of the worst teams in the NBA.
Yes, they are. Knicks at Cavs. Cavs 3.5-point favorites, 216 total. Knicks a little walking wounded. No Obi Toppin, no Dennis Smith Jr. I feel like I'm missing one other person for the Knicks, but it's really hard to remember guys when they're like the 120th best player in the league. So let's talk a little bit about what stands out for the Knicks. I think they look a lot better on FanDuel than they do on DraftKings, but Elfrid Payton's got to be the guy that we look at first. 4,800 on FanDuel, 5,500 on DK. Should be picking up the lion's share of point guard minutes. Quickly also out. I knew I was missing somebody. So Elfrid Payton is the guy that I have my eye on most, but I think Mitchell Robinson looks good at 4,900 on FanDuel. RJ Barrett works because he's just going to be out there, but he's a little bit expensive on DraftKings. Where do you want to go with these New York Knickerbockers today?
Yeah, do like Alf Payton on FanDuel. Like he's a really volatile player where it doesn't matter who the coach is. It seems like he'll play anywhere from 36 to like 20 minutes in a game, and just because some nights he's bad. But 4,800 is a good price to encompass that. Alec Burks off the bench has been kind of like getting a ton of minutes and run, and he's been handling the ball a lot. So I don't know if Alf Payton is really a necessity. It wouldn't be surprising if Ntilikina plays some decent minutes.
Keep an eye on Alec Burks. I believe he is questionable with an ankle injury. So just in case, he is questionable with a left ankle injury.
If he's out, then that could create some value for sure. The main guy I'm looking at on the Knicks today is Mitchell Robinson. He's a guy that fouls a ton, but this last game gave me the confidence that he could play big minutes if he stays out of foul trouble. So they're going up against Milwaukee. He played 34 minutes. Let's see, 7 plus 8. So 15 first half minutes. Andre Drummond, although he's a good center, I feel like he fits into Mitchell Robinson's skill set a little bit more because he doesn't have an outside game, so I don't see any problem there. So I'm thinking Mitchell Robinson is just a really high volatility play that could be a great GPP one.
Yeah, the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause, obviously Mitchell Robinson, just mildly foul prone in the past. Andre Drummond, pretty good at drawing shooting fouls and fouls on the floor, about 80th percentile in the league over the past few seasons. So a little bit better. He's honestly, as a center, one of the better foul drawing bigs. I'm not so worried about him making the free throws or anything like that, but it does potentially put Mitchell Robinson in a little bit more of a rough spot. Not having Kevin Love there today, who Kevin Love out again, helps a little bit. I do like Mitchell Robinson, though. 4,900 on FanDuel is just too cheap for what he can bring. I mean, he could pay off his salary with just blocks if this game works out correctly.
Definitely. So I think Mitchell Robinson's a good GPP play. You want those guys that are high volatility. On FanDuel, I think you can take shots on Randall and Barrett as well. Just there's no particular reason that they're standing out today.
On the Cleveland side, I mentioned it before, but we'll be able to hit on him quickly. Larry Nance is priced like Kevin Love is playing, and he's not. He's also a small forward on FanDuel at 5,500. I absolutely love Nance there. 6,300 on DK, forward and center eligibility. Another spot where I think I fully expect Larry Nance to be one of the most popular plays of the day. I haven't looked at ownership yet, but I assume he's near the top.
Yeah, I mean, with Kevin Love out, he started and played huge minutes, so really there's nothing to really take you off of him. On FanDuel at 5,500, on DraftKings at 6,300, more of a debate. But he is playing power forward, playing alongside Drummond more, so not expecting his fantasy numbers to be quite as good as he has been over the past few seasons, but still the spot is really good.
Yeah, just if you're going to be, I mean, he should play north of 30 minutes in the spot with Love out, and especially at the small forward spot on FanDuel, where it's rarely you're rarely comfortable with whatever you end up with. Today's a good day to get a little bit of value out of it. I don't have any issue going to Andre Drummond if he gets through Mitchell Robinson from a foul perspective. He's got Nerlens Noel on the other end, or potentially Julius Randle, which is not going to be an impediment at all. Really like Drummond in his last game. Embiid ended up sitting, which helped out a ton. He's just sort of like, what you're getting out of Andre Drummond. This isn't going to be some secret. He's the only guy I would really be looking at from Cleveland. Do you have anything else from the Cavs?
Yeah, I think Drummond's a top play. The minutes have been all over the place over in Cleveland, but this year, it was weird because like in one of those games he played like 28 minutes close, even though he was having a pretty good game. But he's been a 10K player basically when Blake Griffin was out for the Pistons. Now that Kevin Love is out for the Cavs, I see it as very similar. His rebounding numbers are going to be off the charts like they have been with Love out. So I think Drummond is a really good play. The other guy that's standing out on the Cavs is Dante Exum. when Isaac.
I saw that tweet yesterday.
Yeah, I was just joking around, but Love played 8 minutes in the last game. In the second half, Dante Exum started, which wasn't that surprising given that Isaac Okoro was also out. If he gets a good amount of run, I mean, he's a guy that has been an intriguing talent, but has had a really injured career. The main factor is that he's dirt cheap tonight, so I think he might be one of the better min-price guys.
I like that shout. It'll be something we'll want to keep an eye on. We should have Cavs starter news before, pretty significantly before lock. Wouldn't surprise me to see him in that starting lineup. If he is, probably gets a little bit of a minutes bump, and somebody you guys should be keeping an eye on. Anything else from Knicks and Cavs?
Nope.
Perfect. Toronto Raptors, Philadelphia 76ers, Sixers 2.5-point favorites at home, a 218.5 implied total. This one's kind of bleak. I'm not sure I like really anything on the Toronto side, so the floor is yours. Do you have any interest in anyone from Toronto, FanDuel, DraftKings, wherever?
Well, Pascal Siakam's been playing crazy minutes. He's averaged 40 this year, but the price has gone up to account for that. So I don't see any tremendous advantage on Toronto, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just everybody's sort of priced where they should be. It's a tough defensive matchup. And like of all the teams in the league, like this is the one where you're rarely getting any sort of weird minutes. You know what you're going to get out of Fred VanVleet. You know what you're going to get out of Kyle Lowry. You know how much Pascal Siakam's going to play. You know what you're getting out of OG. This is just not a spot that I'm looking for. On the Philly side, I assume we see Joel Embiid back after being a late scratch in the last game. I think he looks like Joel Embiid, 9,600 on FanDuel, 9,800 on DraftKings. Probably a pretty good spot. It's Aaron Baines and Chris Boucher on the opposite side. I don't think either one of those guys are set up properly to defend Embiid. And then it's sort of just like not all that interesting Philly guys. Tobias Harris for 6,400 on FanDuel seems fine. Do you see anything on Philly outside of Embiid?
The short answer is no. I mean, this team, you'd think with Josh Richardson and Al Horford shipped out, these guys like Simmons, Harris, and Embiid would be putting up bigger numbers. But so far, it really hasn't been the case, so I'm not seeing much advantage in Philly.
Yeah, much like the Boston and Indiana game, although Sabonis is a little bit of an outlier. This is just another game where I'd be happy to watch it. I don't know how much DFS impact it's going to have for me. I don't have anything else here, bud.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this more, but we got a 10-game slate here. We got to skip over a few games.
Hey, we're 5 games in. We're right at the 10:30 mark. We're timing this one out perfect. It couldn't work out any better. Let's hit on this next one. The Milwaukee Bucks at the Miami Heat. We've seen this one in the bubble. This one might look a little bit different. Bucks 5.5-point favorites in Miami, 222 total. Miami going to be without Jimmy Butler, or at least it looks like it. He is doubtful. On the Milwaukee side, I don't know, $4,500 Brook Lopez on FanDuel. Giannis is Giannis. I don't have much of like a Giannis take in this spot. What do you want to do with Milwaukee? I don't know if there's a ton of value from a salary perspective here.
Yeah, Giannis has been one of the best fantasy players this season so far. The minutes haven't been great at 32 a game, but there have been some blowouts and there have been signs that he could play a few more minutes in close games than he did last year. So I feel pretty confident in going to some Giannis. As far as the rest of the team, Drew Holiday has been playing more minutes for Milwaukee than Bledsoe and Hill did last year, but the price really isn't that great, so I'm not that interested there. I don't see much advantage in Milwaukee today.
No. If you're saving some money by grabbing some of the value plays, you'll just naturally get to a little bit more Giannis because no one's going to offer that same sort of upside. But just on the surface, not anything that I see as crazy. One guy that I do see as crazy, though, $4,500 Tyler Hero for the Heat. That is a FanDuel price. That price is great. I believe he's playing 32 minutes in his first 2 games. You expect to see that and a little bit more, especially with Butler out, a little bit more usage to go around. $5,700 on DraftKings for Hero. still, I think, a worthy price, but not quite the value that you have on FanDuel. And then if you're interested in Bam Adebayo, 8,200 on FanDuel, 8K on DraftKings, I'm willing to get to those prices as well. I don't see much else for Miami, but let me know. Am I missing anything? Maybe Goran Dragic, 6,900 on FanDuel, 5,800 on DK, a much more interesting value. Talk to me about the Heat.
Yeah, well, I think Jimmy Butler opens up a ton of value for the Heat. So I actually, this was funny. I was on Side Action, and I saw this article where it was talking all about Kendrick Nunn and this cryptic message he posted on social. He posted "New Beginnings," and that was it. So like he didn't play at all last game. So I'm just kind of like, what is going on here? Like, is there some trade that we don't know about? Because he played 0 minutes last game. Last year, if Jimmy Butler had been out, you might have seen a Nunn start. But now I'm not even sure he's going to play. If he doesn't play, we did see Andre Iguodala open the second half on Christmas when Jimmy Butler decided he didn't want to play the second half. I mean, obviously, I guess he's injured. He's doubtful today. But Andre Iguodala is a very low usage guy, so that's going to open a lot of opportunities up for the rest of the team. Tyler Hero being one of the top ones, Bam Adebayo, and Goran Dragic off the bench because he's such a good ball handler and facilitator. I wouldn't be surprised for him to pick up minutes close to 30, even though he's coming off the bench probably, which makes him a nice value.
Yeah, that's the tricky part with Miami. They're just so deep. They're going to be running out all sorts of guys. Kelly Olynyk can not play one day and then play 20 minutes the next. Do they start Myers Leonard? Do they not start Myers Leonard? Precious Achiuwa also trying to work his way into rotational minutes. Mo Harkless bouncing around in minutes. A lot of different options here, but I think the Tyler Hero value piece on FanDuel, that's a spot you definitely want to be paying attention to. And then Dragic on DK, 5,800, just way too cheap. Any other Bucks Heat thoughts?
I think the Heat are probably one of the teams that are going to be the best values today. So I think that Hero, Dragic, and Bam will all be some of the better plays today.
We're up to 780 concurrent viewers, 150 likes. I appreciate you guys pushing that number north of 100. Now let's push it closer to that 200 mark, and then let's just soar right over it. If you aren't ever able to watch our shows live on our YouTube channel, you're in luck. You can listen to them on our podcast feed. So we have podcast feeds for every individual sport. We've got one big podcast feed that'll give you everything that we do. Go check out our podcast feed. Go to iTunes. Give us a 5-star review. Let us know how awesome we are. We do give out a free Awesemo Plus pass every week to the user that submits our favorite review for that week. No reason that can't be you. So go give us that 5-star review on iTunes and leave us a little bit of a review. Give yourself a chance to get an Awesemo Plus free pass. We've got 4 games to go. We're moving through this at a pretty good pace. I like it. The Orlando, and this is going to be the first game at 8 o'clock. The Orlando Magic taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City on the back-to-back. We'll start on the Orlando side where they are 5-point favorites in OKC, 219 total. We've got Vooch at 8,400 on FanDuel, looks okay. He's 8,300 on DK. This Magic team is really unfun to roster from a DFS perspective. They're sort of like a less good version of the Raptors in that you kind of know exactly what you're getting out of these guys every single night from a playing time perspective. Do you have any interest in anything coming out of Orlando?
Yeah, I think Vooch is very interesting. So the past few games, we've seen Aaron Gordon limited in minutes for some reason. And more or less Gordon minutes just means more minutes for Vooch, where he's not with Gordon. His numbers this year have been solid. Pretty much the same Vooch we've come to know. He's the main thing is he's just not that expensive in a good matchup for Sal Horford. So he's 8,300 on DraftKings and 8,400 on FanDuel. There's no injuries to the team, but he just stands out at that price.
Yeah, I'm with you there. After that, like if you end up with shares of Fournier or Fultz or Gordon, like I get it, but they're just not going to be guys that you're ending up with a lot of volume on. And I don't really see anything from the Magic side unless it's going to be Vooch. SGA, on the other hand, very popular yesterday. He's 8K on FanDuel, 8,100 on DraftKings. Disappointed in yesterday's slate. Are you going back to the well with SGA?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, SGA is someone we pegged as a breakout star this year with no Chris Paul. And the numbers so far have really borne that out. Over the first 2 games, he's had 33% usage. Last year, he was at 23%. His assist percent has been 35%. Last year, 15%. So, I mean, he's like significantly increasing his usage on this team with no Chris Paul. And I mean, that's not anything we shouldn't have expected. So I'm totally rolling with that. I think that he's more of a 9K player and he's 8K. So I'm going to be in on again today. What do you think of SGA?
I like him. He's going to run this entire team for the entire season. They're not really trying to win, and they are trying to groom him to be the guy in the future. He's going to take his lumps. He's going to be out there for everything. There's going to be some days where it's just not going all that well because there's not a lot of talent around him, but there are going to be some days where he just simply takes over. I'd be happy to see that today. And I do think that that price continues to climb. You could talk me into Dort or Darius Baisley on DraftKings. You could talk me into a little bit of Al Horford on FanDuel, but I don't think that there's much outside of SGA. Do you have any other Thunder guys you have your eye on?
I haven't given up on Horford yet. His usage over the first 2 games has only been 12%, so that's been really disappointing. You'd think on this team he'd have higher usage than he did in Philly. His assist numbers also have been down, so it's not like he's been dishing out the ball instead of shooting it. But his rebounding numbers are way, way up, playing center for the Thunder. Last year was at 17%, getting the defensive boards. This year he's at 25%. So, I mean, that's at least a sign of encouragement. That's going to keep me clinging on the hook one more day at least to see if he can finally beat his $5,900 price tag.
Yeah, I don't know if he gets there from a DFS perspective, but I am definitely rooting for Al Horford. And more than anything, I just want to see where he ultimately ends up, because he's going to end up on a contender either at the deadline this year or sometime in the offseason. And I'm anxious to see which one of them gets him. So I still think he's great to have on the court. Just not a great fit alongside Ben Simmons and alongside Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I mean, well, I just think he might be hard to like fit because he's not like a pure position. Like he's not like a power forward, not a center, and that just makes it tough.
He's also incredibly expensive now from a real life perspective, not a DFS perspective. Anything else, Magic or Thunder?
Hamidou Diallo is really cheap, so I feel like he's going to be that 6-man off the bench that's going to need to take a lot of shots. But we haven't seen anything yet, so I'm hesitant.
Fair enough. The Denver Nuggets taking on the Sacramento Kings in Sacramento. Nuggets 2.5-point favorites in Sacktown, 223 total. Jamal Murray, a guy that stands out to me on FanDuel, 6,600. We have to keep an eye on him, though. It did take a bit of a spill yesterday. So long as he's not waking up with headaches or anything along those lines, he should be fine. Potential concussion issues, but 6,600 to me is too cheap for what we know his upside to be. Then you get to Nikola Jokic, 10-3 on FanDuel, 10-2 on DK. I don't have a strong feeling for Jokic. He's just a guy that I will never have a problem having, and certainly against Sacramento, pretty good matchup for him. What do you like coming out of Denver?
Yeah, I mean, Jokic has been on fire to start the year. So I'm kind of looking at these numbers. His assist numbers are really up. That's about it. So minutes are up. I'm just a little bit worried that he's not a 36-minute a night guy because he just fouls too much to reach that number. Yeah. So I'm not really feeling him. I kind of like Michael Porter Jr. still. We know that he's a guy that has a ton of volatility because in games where they don't need his offense, he gets benched. In games where they're playing from behind, he's just jacking up all the shots. So kind of like him. But versus Sacramento, it doesn't seem like the matchup's that great, and the price tags aren't that great either. So what are you feeling with Denver?
Yeah, mostly just lineup filler. Nobody that I see as like an incredibly great play outside of Murray. Murray is the guy that I will have my focus on just because of his price tag. But, if I get to some Jokic, if I get to some Porter, a little bit of Paul Millsap, I think would be fine. 4,500 on FanDuel, 5,300 on DK. Gary Harris had a pretty nice night last night. Who knows if that happens again? 3,900 on FanDuel, 43 on DK. Again, this is mostly just filler to me, but Murray, the guy I have my eye on. And then if I ever end up with Nikola Jokic, I'm never mad about it. Sacramento. Go ahead.
With Jokic being more than Westbrook, like, man, this is they're really making you pay top dollar for him here. So I might just wait and see for his price to go down again.
And I think that there's enough value around there at center today that Jokic isn't necessarily the guy. Sacramento Kings, Buddy Hield, 5,400 on FanDuel, 6,800 on DraftKings. Very different play on both sides, preferring Hield on the FanDuel spot. Curious to get your thoughts on Hield, but after that, I'm not entirely sure I want much from the Sacramento Kings today.
Buddy Hield has been like the weirdest guy in fantasy because last year he got like benched and then only played like 20 something minutes a game. This year he's averaged 36 so far. So, I mean, there haven't been any signs that he's not going to play good minutes. However, like maybe coming off the bench a little bit last year, it did inflate his numbers in this starting lineup. So far, he's seen his usage and assists go down from last year. So although he's been out there a ton, he hasn't been doing quite as much. Part of that has been because Bagley is back in the lineup. He's had extremely high usage, 27%. His rebounding numbers have been off the charts, and the minutes just haven't been there for a variety of reasons. So I'm like, if he played 30 minutes like we've seen in the past, man, he would be absolutely like lock it in play. But what have you made of Bagley so far?
I want him to be good. That much I can tell you. He's just so volatile. He missed so much time last year. And I mean, even the year before, I think he lost a lot of development and he's behind where he needs to be as a player. 5,100 on FanDuel, 5,400 on DraftKings. I can say this much. He's my second favorite King today. I just don't know if that matters on a slate of this size.
Yeah. I'm just kind of intrigued by the talent and the price where like this slate, it's like there aren't a ton of guys that are in the 5Ks that are super interesting. So I think he's in the mix.
He's kind of Sacramento's version of Michael Porter.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
Like an offensive, like a sort of big with offensive promise, no defensive ability whatsoever, and a guy that we haven't seen nearly as much as we want to.
Well, he was the second draft pick only in 2018, so this guy has a ton of talent. He's kind of that stretch five that is popular these years. So I feel like there's a ton of potential there. He did foul out of one game so far this year, so that was one reason maybe his minutes aren't as high as they could be. But I guess, I guess the other guys on the team, Fox looks like he has a nice price. I mean, his minutes haven't been as exciting this year either at 33 a game, even with that overtime, but good player. And then Hassan Whiteside is really disappointed so far this year. Like, he's on a min contract, but that'll be one guy to stay away from just because he's only averaged 14 minutes a game, so it's not like he's backing up Holmes and playing all the minutes he doesn't. So,
yeah, that's the piece that's driving me crazy for the Kings. I wouldn't be playing Hassan Whiteside at all, and I'd be giving Bagley those minutes at the 5. But if you're going to play Whiteside for, let's say 12 minutes, you're going to play Rashawn Holmes for whatever that rotation is, you're just taking Marvin Bagley away from the position that he should be playing. And I don't think that's going to be all that beneficial for him. Why do you need Hassan Whiteside out there? He is not part of your future. Give it to the number 2 pick from 2 years ago. The guy that you took ahead of Luka Doncic. Play him in his real position. Man. Dopes. Oh my God. It's so insane. Anything else here in Denver or Sacramento?
Yeah, that comparison to Luka Doncic, that seals it. I feel like he is drafted ahead of Luka and he's 50 something 100. So like you got to play Bagley.
Yeah, it's nuts. Minnesota Timberwolves, Los Angeles Clippers. This is going to be a spot we have a lot to talk about. Clippers 8-point favorites, 229 total. We'll start on the Minnesota side where it's not looking like we're going to have Karl Anthony Towns today or for a little bit of an extended time. Dislocated wrist, not great. This team stinks when he's there. They're going to certainly stink a lot worse with him out. Naz Reid, the guy that should be picking up the biggest amount of playing time from this absence, 4,500 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DK. We'll start with Naz Reid since I think he's going to be the guy for Minnesota that benefits. Am I missing anything here, or is Naz Reid clearly the guy?
Well, I think Naz Reid is going to have a lot of opportunity with Karl Anthony Towns out. We did see last year Naz Reid got a solid amount of starts in this situation, so we got some priors that we can go off. I mean, he's an undersized center, was undrafted in 2019, so as far as that, he's like the undersized guys tend to be better for fantasy because it's like defense is like the reason they're not out there as much. Yeah. So at 5,100, 4,500 FanDuel, he's probably one of the best values of the night. That being said, he fouls like crazy. He averaged 6 fouls per 36 last year, which is higher than Mitchell Robinson even, I think. So you got to think like there's a pretty high chance he gets in foul trouble. So is that scaring you off Naz Reid at all?
A little bit. Obviously, he's going to be really popular. Like from a cash game perspective, you're probably ending up with Naz Reid either way. From a GPP perspective, when he's soaking up all of that ownership, I can see scenarios where you're like, okay, maybe I take a flyer on Ed Davis. Not at all something that's exciting. Kind of flamed out last year from Utah, trying to reclaim himself in Minnesota. This could be that spot. Flat minimum on FanDuel, 3,400 on DraftKings. If you think that Naz Reid is not going to be out there for enough minutes, I think that Ed Davis is probably the guy that ends up out there trying to be the center. But just because of Reid's price, I don't want to go any other way. What else stands out to you from Minnesota? We obviously have to replace Karl Anthony Towns' offensive usage. Does that go to D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Malik Beasley? Plenty of guys to go around. Are any of them good enough, though?
I think so. The other piece of news from Minnesota is Josh Okogie is doubtful. So that's going to shake things up a little bit, create some opportunities. Juancho Hernangomez started the second half of the last game. He's 3,600 on DraftKings, 3,500 on FanDuel. The last thing about him is he could even play over Ed Davis as backup center in some situations. So I think there's a lot of potential with Juancho. D'Angelo Russell, as you're saying, I mean, playing alongside Towns is going to limit his usage a good amount. So I think we see that climb a good amount today. But the one thing is Naz Reid actually doesn't have that much lower usage than Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is at 28. Naz Reid is at 23 last year. So not as many shots to go around as you would think.
Okay. Yeah, if I'm probably just going to have to rotate through these guys. You expect one of Beasley, Edwards, Russell to just sort of be the guy that soaks up some of the shot attempts. If I'm ranking them, probably Beasley, Edwards, Russell on FanDuel, Russell, Beasley, Edwards on DraftKings. Either way, it's pretty tight for me. Naz Reid is the guy that I'm looking for. And the guy that I haven't mentioned at all, Ricky Rubio, 5,100 on FanDuel, 5,500 on DraftKings. I'm just not sure how this affects him at all and if it really matters for Rubio.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, he's only averaged 23 minutes a game so far. It's clear that in Minnesota, his role is a lot different than we've been used to in Phoenix. So I'm not on Rubio. I don't know if the injuries will really affect him. Okay. Jared Culver could be interesting. We saw him at big games last year, but his price went up to the point where I don't think he's playable tonight.
On the Clippers side, Kawhi Leonard, questionable, still has that mouth laceration. This is the front end of a back-to-back. I think the expectation is that he's not going to play today and that he will play tomorrow. Marcus Morris also working his way back right now, also questionable. Not entirely sure where we go there. I projected him as in with a mild amount of minutes simply because I didn't know what else to do with those minutes and I didn't want to just start throwing them to Patrick Patterson or Terrence Mann. So What are you thinking about Kawhi and Marcus Morris as of right now? And then does anybody stand out to you from the Clippers?
Well, I don't want to speculate too much about Kawhi here because I feel like the Clippers were down 77-24 in halftime last game. So any rest plans may have changed after that. If he is in, that really does negatively impact Paul George and to a lesser extent Serge Ibaka. But if he's out, then George, Ibaka, and then Lou Will off the bench, I think all are going to be really standout options.
Okay.
Hopefully we find out sooner rather than later. But especially on FanDuel, these guys are priced down. If Kawhi does miss this game, it's going to be Clippers chalk night.
Yeah, that's going to be something you want to pay attention to. Make sure you're going to the News Gods live blog link on the website. If you hit the NBA drop down, it'll be the bottom link. Look for that live blog. And then follow Awesemo NBA, follow El Negro Loco on Twitter so you don't miss any of this news. It's hard to speculate right now, but once we get a little bit of an idea of where the Clippers are going, there's potential to open up a lot of value here, especially someone like Paul George at 7,600 who can run the show on FanDuel if there is no Kawhi. Anything else you want to touch on Wolves and Clippers?
Nah. Luke Kennard probably would get the start if Kawhi misses again, but we saw how that went.
I just got a pop-up alert on my Apple Watch from McDonald's telling me to go get a McRib.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad about it. If it were just here, I would eat it. I don't think that I'm going to go to get it, however. Final game of the night. Looks like we're going to get through all 10 of these games. Pelicans at the Suns. Suns 3.5-point favorites, 223 total. On the Pelican side, we have to start here. He's been dreadful so far this season, but Eric Bledsoe is 4,800 on FanDuel. You going back to take that beating one more time?
I think so. I mean, although he's been really disappointing, probably because of his ownership. Minutes at 32 a game are solid. And then the usage is 19, assist percent 19. Not as good as Milwaukee, but we can live with that. So 4,800 for a guy playing 30 minutes to begin with is pretty low. If it's a guy that is at least average in the stats, I think it's a really good play.
Yeah, I can't get away from him on FanDuel. I'll probably rotate through some Lonzo, a little bit of Steven Adams, maybe some Zion, but I don't see the Pelicans as all that appealing from a price perspective. I think they're pretty efficient from a cost standpoint. Do you like any other Pelicans outside of Bledsoe on FanDuel?
Well, for DFS, no one's really popping, but as far as players, I mean, Zion Williamson, we're really seeing his minutes jump up this year. He's at 35 a game. The usage, and I mean, it's pretty much where we'd expect it. The one stat where he's really excelled this year compared to last year is rebounding. For the first few games, he's had a 23% defensive rebounding rate, while in New Orleans, they're replacing what was it? I guess they had a few different centers last year, but one of them was Favors.
Yeah.
Steven Adams, his rebounding rate this year has been down to 16%. So if we're going off our priors, Steven Adams has been a guy that boxes out for other guys that get the rebounds. I feel like Zion Williamson could take that step forward in the rebounding category this year to become a more well-rounded fantasy player. So I'm probably going to take some shots tonight.
All righty. Final team of the day, the Phoenix Suns. Got Devin Booker, 7,500 on FanDuel, 9,100 on DraftKings. A slight lean there to the FanDuel side. We've got DeAndre Ayton, 7,100 and 7,400. I like Ayton quite a bit on DK. How do you feel about Booker? How do you feel about Ayton? Any other value options for you on the Suns?
Yeah, the Suns on FanDuel look a lot better priced, where Booker is like 9,100 on DraftKings, and playing alongside Chris Paul, I mean, pretty much you're going to see the same thing as Rubio, except to a greater extent, where Booker is just not going to get as many assists. His assists are way down this year, while Chris Paul's are really high. So that indicates to me that Booker is probably going to take a step back a little bit this year in fantasy. So I kind of 7,500 though on FanDuel is a good price. Aiden's another guy that has kind of been frustrating this year, just hasn't gotten the minutes, but I don't see any reason why his minutes are going to go down this year. So I'm pulling up their game log here. 7,400 on DraftKings and 7,100 seems a little low, but I mean, he hasn't really done that much either. So what are you feeling about Aiden?
I think there's just a lot of value at the center spot tonight. Like if I look at the FanDuel side of it, Embiid, Drummond, Vooch, Bam, Ayton, Plumlee, Thomas Bryant, Mitchell Robinson, James Wiseman. I feel like there are just so many options. Nobody as a full-on standout. So I'm happy to get to him there. On DraftKings at 7,400, I like him a little bit more. But again, there's so many different like power forward center type eligible guys. Like if Blake Griffin is going to get center eligibility, I'm more interested in Blake Griffin than I am in DeAndre Ayton. I think we have a lot of those type of guys. Would you be surprised that DeAndre Ayton has like a 50-point game today? Absolutely not. But I just don't think that he is naturally any sort of value that I want to prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to come down to the ownership. Like, is he going to be a contrarian play, or is he going to be like just owned kind of like everyone else? So we'll have to see on that. I'd hope that given he's been underwhelming so far, maybe there's a little bit of contrarian value there. One injury note for this game is Dario Saric is probable. Yeah. I don't think that will make an impact right away, but Frank Kaminsky played last game. I expect him to be out of the rotation.
10 games up, 10 games down, 90 seconds remaining before 11 o'clock and before Laffy, Sal, and Ben take you through the NFL slate. Alex, any final thoughts on the slate as a whole before we get out of here?
Definitely, yeah. Guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate all you guys. Not to steal Josh's thunder, but please hit that like button. So I think for this slate, we don't have those smash value plays like we did yesterday, so it's going to be a lot more about the game theory. I mean, even the chalk play, Naz Reid seems like he has question marks because of minutes and foul trouble. So I'm kind of feeling like this could be an interesting day to go contrarian, where yesterday it's like you just had to slam the chalk because it was so good. What do you think?
I like it. I like it. And anytime that you're telling me it's a good day to go contrarian, that's usually the day that we see the Awesemo logo at the top of the contest. So keep that one in mind, everybody. Thank you for joining us. One last call: like, subscribe, notification bell, follow the podcast feed, follow at Awesemo_com, at Josh Engleman, and at Awesemo DFS. That is it. We are out. Switch to the links. Go watch the NFL strategy show with Laffy, Ben, and Sal. Good luck tonight, guys.